Well, excuse me. Hello, everyone. Been a while since I made a video. Quick reminder that I am on BitChute as well. Link in the description if I remember to. But this is something that I really want to talk about because it's something that's gotten to a point where where it has annoyed me. It's been pretty much 2 weeks now since the Roe v. Wade decision, the Roe v. Wade overturning. And I have watched on the left as they have gone from women's rights about this whole thing and abortion rights, which they know is false and bullshit, to sitting up there and going, oh my gosh, what about gay rights? Claiming that Clarence Thomas has declared that they're now going to go after gay rights. Culminating with Cenk Uygur screeching, kvetching in one of his videos about how they're going to have the anti-gay police pop up eventually. And the anti-gay police are going to be going around making sure you're not having derriere delights, as Anna put it, or butt sex. Really? Seriously? Also, the claim that the anti-sodomy laws also count for oral sex. Whatever, I've never heard that before. That's just bullshit in my opinion. But the thing about all of this is this apparently young people do not realize that there's been anti-sodomy laws on the books now for over 200 plus years in this country. There have not really ever been anti-gay laws. Those didn't come about until the late 60s, so to speak. And these are basically ordinances, not direct laws. And they're almost all of them are local, not state. The state is not passing anti-gay sex laws or anti-gay laws or anti-sodomy laws. Local municipalities are. Now, you're saying, well, wait a minute, over 200 years we had this? Yes. The first starting of similar laws or ordinances started during the Puritan and Quaker periods of the early colonial United States. So 1500s, 1600s into the early 1700s. The Quakers and the Puritans were basically an offshoot Christian cult whose beliefs in God were more along the lines of you get to go to heaven if you're somehow magically chosen or you keep your bodies pure for God. So they were against sodomy in any form or fashion. So extreme were they in their beliefs that you could only have sex with your spouse for procreation. At any other time, you weren't supposed to be having any kind of sex. Your wife couldn't even give you oral pleasure. You weren't supposed to have sex unless you were trying to make babies. Now, how many people actually went along with this? Probably almost none. There's a reason why the Quakers and the Puritans died out. They were too strict and too silly and too stupid. So, going forward, as the country progressed, we get into the 1700s. Of course, these regulations and ordinances became basically regulations and ordinances written down in law instead of just rules for our little Christian cult over here. This is the holdover from the Puritans and stuff like that, who disappeared really right around the early 1700s. Because, like I said, who'd want to follow a cult like that? With these laws sort of being put on the books, they were put in, like I said, in local municipalities and towns. The states, even then, even after the Revolutionary War and the establishment of the United States of America, the states never put these anti-gay laws or anti-sodomy laws into practice. They instead allowed each town and municipality to do it because did you really have time to do that? There's so much else going on. The federal government never had an anti-gay law. They had ordinances and regulations generally based upon the military, where the military said you could not be openly gay and serve or knowingly gay and serve. You would be booted out if it was discovered that you were gay. Now, the federal government didn't even put that into law. That was a military rule, a military ordinance. So what happened is, of course, by 2008, the Supreme Court supposedly allowed for gay marriage. No, they didn't. What happened was that the Supreme Court overthrew the Defense of Marriage Act which said that, and by doing that, said that the federal government must now recognize gay marriage as they do heterosexual marriage. That's it. So what does that mean? That means if you got gay married, let's say in California, and you worked for the federal government, or you had to travel to Washington to work for the federal government had to recognize your gay spouse as equally as they would a straight spouse. So if you were two guys who were married, hubby number one works for the federal government, all of the benefits that he gets, health insurance, visitation rights in the hospitals, all of that stuff, writing up of wills and all this other crap, the federal government now has to acknowledge that. At the state level, the Supreme Court basically said, well, let the states say if they want gay marriage or not, or whether they recognize a gay marriage from another state. So like in my home state, you can go get gay married in Georgia, but you come up to North Carolina or South Carolina, they're saying, nah, we don't recognize that marriage. But, your insurance company can recognize it all they want. But if you come work for the state, they're generally saying, well, no, we will recognize that you're married, but you're not going to get the same benefits as a state worker or your gay spouse won't. Hey, state's rights. You don't like it? Don't work for the state. Okay? Quit bitching. So now, over the years, these anti-gay laws existed, but nobody ever enforced them. How are you going to do that? These anti-sodomy laws, how are you going to enforce them? No one cared to enforce them, especially by the 1900s, because they were sitting there going, well, how are we going to enforce these things? How? It's not like people are having gay sex out in public, so there was no way to enforce them, and the cops didn't bother. Cops were like, man, we're not going to bother with that. Now, by the 1960s, they did start a form of enforcement. And the way they did that was they instituted what we now call, and what I remember from my 20s and early 30s as the anti-cruising laws. Now you're going, wait a minute, the anti-cruising laws are about teenagers driving around in cars everywhere in a circle. Yes and no. What started happening in the 1950s and 60s was that gay prostitution was on the rise. And at first, no one gave a damn, because how are you going to see that? It's one thing to have some chick standing on the street corner somewhere in the middle of the night, dressed kind of sexy, waiting around for some guy to come pick her up. Any cop can see that. But what about some dude leaning up against a building, standing under a streetlight, dressed modestly? Might be anywhere between 16 to 25 years old. You can't be sure. He's just standing there chilling. Come back by as a cop 2 hours later. He's still standing there chilling. Come back by an hour and a half later. He's gone. Come back 2.5 hours later. He's standing there again. What's he doing there? You don't know. You're not worried about it. Until the bodies start popping up. And that same young guy you saw standing at that street corner or under that street light, he's dead. That's where the anti-cruising laws came from, as we called them in my home state for a while. The anti-cruising laws were meant to stop gay prostitution, because what was happening was old and young gay men were found dead, strangled, dead, stabbed, shot in their cars after they picked up a John or a trick, whatever you want to call it, or a prostitute, from a public place, like a public park, public restrooms, rest stops out near the highway. So you'd find some guy dead in his car, or some poor young guy dead thrown in the bushes somewhere, strangled to death. And this was happening not only all across the South, but all across the nation. So they started passing these laws saying, okay, you can't stand out here at a public park for 2 or 3 hours. Even if you were literally just standing there waiting on your ride to come pick you up. The cops started chasing you off. Now, these were local state ordinances and laws. And it was done to protect the public. Now, over the years, of course, those laws stopped that behavior. It really did. Because if you can't stand out there anymore and wait for the proverbial John to come pick you up, you're screwed. Because the cops are going to be coming by. So that behavior quickly faded out, probably by the 70s. But the states kept these laws on the books. or should I say, the towns and municipalities kept these laws on the books because what happened is some of it just moved to different places. Such as in my hometown, there is a park. It's sort of owned by an old textile company. And the park is on one side of the highway, and then there's another sort of public park on the other side of the highway. It used to be a gay cruising spot. Used to be a lot of gay guys that just be hanging around there. Now, the one side of the park where the old textile mill was, they had like security out there, regular company security out there, cruising around, keeping these guys, shooing them off after a little while. Now, why did that have to happen? Because what started happening is you would have these gay dudes sitting up there meeting one another there and having sex out in the bushes in the park, where people and their families were at times walking by. So, yeah, you had to reinforce the gay cruising laws, the anti-cruising laws. Why? Because people were stupid enough to get out of their cars, park, go find another gay dude in the bushes and start fucking in the goddamn bushes. And this is a public park. Stupid. So stupid behavior forces law enforcement to have to go and do something to stop and curb your stupidity. This is, in other words, don't be stupid, guys. You make life hard for yourself. And sitting here claiming, oh my God, look at the anti-gay laws. No, it's not anti-gay. It's anti-bad behavior in public. Don't do stupid shit in public, guys. Now, I can remember they used to actually quasi-raid one of the gay clubs I used to go to back when I was in my 20s. At least once a month, the cops would come in. Generally, one or two of them. And was that gay harassment, anti-gay laws? No, they were basically looking for drugs and underage people in there drinking. But I remember talking to one of the bartenders, like, why does these guys keep coming in here every time I'm in here? Oh, they just come by to make sure we're not serving alcohol to underage people. There's no underage people in the club. And that there's no drugs being sold or prostitution and stuff like that. They do that. They've been doing that for years. That's how they run the laws. But it isn't really a raid. But once again, when you have bad behavior going on in a considered place, while it may be a private business, it's open to the public, the police start getting involved, especially when they start hearing about illegal behaviors going on. So now these laws are still on the books in all 50 states. Believe me, they are. Why haven't they been gotten rid of? Because that's the duty of the local municipality, the local town, county, city, village, whatever. It's their job to get rid of these laws or rescind these laws. And they're not going to do it because no one's enforcing them anyway. So it just sits there on the books. If and when it is needed because of the behavior of others, then the laws come back into effect. Then the ordinances come back into effect, I should say, or ordinance and regulation. This doesn't mean that, they hated gay people back then. No, they were seeking to curb behavior that was occurring in public, that was against the public morals, the public good, and precipitated worse crimes. So, gay prostitution, we don't like that. Not because we hate gay people, but because we end up finding 17-year-old guys strangled to death in the bushes with their pants around their ankles. Because we find 45-year-old guys strangled in their cars and their money stolen with their pants around their ankles. After enough murders happen, you got to do something, guys. These laws don't seem fair, but they're common sense. But these laws are not going to be enforced by the state or by the federal government. This idea that Clarence Thomas and the rest of the conservative justices are somehow going to pass some law that outlaws butt sex, gay marriage, and every damn thing else, it's just ridiculous and stupid. Gay marriage, as I said before, is not outlawed in the 50 states. It is the purview of said state to whether they recognize gay marriage and allow you to go to a marriage license place and get a gay marriage license. You can still get gay married. You can declare yourself gay and married. The state just doesn't have to give you a slip of paper saying that they recognize that you're gay married. And the federal government can't pass a law like that. It would be argued against constitutionally in a skinny minute. So then the Supreme Court, everybody has to remember, the Supreme Court does not pass laws in most cases. They look at a law that has been passed by either the Congress or a local municipality, i.e. town, county, whatever, or a state, and say whether it's constitutional or not. That is what they do. They do not pass laws. So Chuck Yeager and Anna Kasparian and all these other lunatics on the left that I see in mainstream media screeching and kvetching about this. My first thought is, okay, or do they just not know the law? The second is, are they stupid? Or three, is this some malicious form of gaslighting? Oh, we have to tell the gay folks that their rights are on the chopping block next, so they'll support us. What the fuck? And then I remember Cenk even going so far as to say, well, this means they can outlaw a interracial marriage. How's the Supreme Court going to do that when they passed laws saying that when they pushed for laws to be passed saying that interracial marriage could happen? Okay? Quit being stupid, Cenk. Quit gaslighting people. I can arguably say that since Cenk has only been in this country for 40 plus years, for those you don't know, Cenk is anywhere between 55 and 57 years old, if I remember correctly. I can kind of give him a pass because he's an immigrant and he's stupid. But the problem I have with that is he's supposedly a lawyer. So he should know about these laws. Now, some of these younger folks that I see on TYT and some of these other places who are obviously gay and they're screeching and kvetching about this, my first thought is, how the fuck, if you are gay or bisexual, do you not know about the history of anti-gay laws, anti-sodomy laws, or anything? Whether you're male or female, you should know about this shit. I know about it. I'm in my fucking 40s. And I'm not college educated. I don't have a college degree in shit. In anything. But I know about these laws. I've known about them ever since I was in my 20s. So, with such a pro-gay culture now, why don't these young people know this shit? Why don't they realize they're being gaslit? Why don't they come out and say, hey, look, man, this anti-abortion thing, I may disagree or agree with it, but quit dragging us into that shit. Quit dragging us into that shit. Nobody gives a flying fuck. You know, it is just absolutely ridiculous that we have people in the gay community running around worrying about this. Worrying about the abortion rights thing. I mean, unless you plan on getting pregnant for some crazy reason. If you're a lesbian, why are you worried about Roe v. Wade? Think about that for a moment. Why are you worried about Roe v. Wade? Your chances of getting pregnant is slim to shit. Unless you get raped. And most states have already said, well, if you get raped and you get here within a certain amount of time, we'll abort the kid for you. And here's a little something about a rape shield, rape laws, things like that. If you are raped and you report to the police, if you were penetrated without a condom or whatever, they will give you the morning after pill right there. When you go to the hospital or whatever, they will give you the morning after pill. If you don't even have to ask, they'll offer it to you. And then you can take it. So, even if you're a lesbian, what are you worried about? If you're gay, I definitely don't see what the fuck you're worried about. Last I checked, men couldn't have babies no matter how hard they effing tried. I don't care what the trans community fucking says, okay? A natural born male ain't having no babies. Trans women ain't having no babies. Trans women might be able to make a baby in a natural born woman, but, you know, this is the gaslighting. This is the stupidity of these people. And sadly enough, it is the ignorance of the gay community for them not to realize they're being gaslit by a bunch of straight abortion activists. And I have to admit, I am somewhat irked by the fact that the media is involving itself like this. So, that's all I have to say on that. Folks, get smart, please. Okay, just get smart. Everybody have a blessed day. Goodbye.